History is filled with moments that seem almost fictional, moments where a single individual challenges entire systems, leaving governments, investigators, and even generations of people searching for answers. On a cold November evening in 1971, one such mystery was born. A mystery that would confuse investigators, inspire storytellers, and spark thousands of theories across decades. A quiet man, calm, composed, dressed like any ordinary businessman, boarded a plane, and disappeared into history. But this is not just a story about a hijacking, this is a story about planning, psychology, fear, risk, and the unknown. This is the story of the man the world remembers as D.B. Cooper. On November 24, 1971, the day before Thanksgiving in the United States, holiday travel was at its peak. Airports were busy, families were rushing home, business travelers were trying to finish work before the long weekend. At the airport in Portland, a man approached the ticket counter of Northwest Orient Airlines. He was not nervous, he was not in a hurry, he did not attract attention, he paid cash for a one-way ticket to Seattle. The flight was short. Only about 30 minutes in the air. The aircraft assigned to him would become one of the most famous planes in criminal history. He boarded Flight 305, a Boeing 727, an aircraft known for having rear boarding stairs that could be lowered during flight. At the time, no one imagined that this specific feature would later become the center of one of the most famous mysteries ever. He chose seat 18C. Witnesses later described him as a man in his mid-40s, about 6 feet tall, wearing a dark business suit, polished shoes, white shirt, and black tie. He carried a briefcase. Nothing unusual, nothing threatening. He ordered a bourbon and soda. He sat quietly. And then, everything changed. Shortly after takeoff, he handed a folded note to a flight attendant. At first, she assumed it was just another passenger trying to flirt or pass a phone number. She slipped it into her purse without reading it. The man leaned toward her and calmly said, "Miss, you'd better look at that note, I have a bomb." Her heart froze. Inside the note were clear instructions. He claimed he had explosives inside his briefcase. To prove it, he briefly opened it, showing what appeared to be wires and red, cylindrical objects. Then came the demands. $200,000 in cash, all in $20 bills, 4 parachutes, 2 main, 2 reserve, no tricks, no funny business. The plane continued flying toward Seattle. The crew quietly informed authorities. Law enforcement immediately began coordinating the response. Money was gathered, parachutes were collected, plans were made, but something strange stood out. Why 4 parachutes? Investigators later believed this was extremely smart. If he asked for 1 parachute, authorities might risk giving him a faulty one, but 4 parachutes suggested he might force a crew member to jump with him, forcing authorities to provide working equipment. This was not random. This was planned. When the plane landed in Seattle, the passengers had no idea what was happening. The aircraft taxied to a remote part of the airport. Authorities delivered the ransom and parachutes. One by one, the 36 passengers were released safely. No panic, no violence, no chaos, just calm instructions. The hijacker kept only essential crew members on board: pilot, co-pilot, flight engineer, and 1 flight attendant. Then he issued new instructions: refuel the plane, fly toward Mexico City, keep altitude low, keep speed slow, leave the rear stairs ready. Authorities had no choice. The plane took off again, now carrying one of the most mysterious criminals in history. Night fell. Clouds covered the sky. Rain poured outside. The aircraft flew south. At around 8 p.m., somewhere between Seattle and Reno, something happened. A warning light indicated the rear stairs had been activated. Air pressure changed. The plane slightly shifted. And in that moment, the man disappeared into darkness. He jumped into freezing rain, into mountainous wilderness, into unknown terrain, with $200,000 strapped to his body, and he was never seen again. Immediately, authorities launched one of the largest investigations in aviation history. The case was assigned to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. The operation was given a code name: Norjack, short for Northwest hijacking. Hundreds of agents were assigned. They interviewed passengers. They interviewed airline staff. They checked serial numbers of ransom money. They searched forests. They analyzed parachute equipment. They studied weather conditions. They tracked possible landing zones. Over the years, they investigated more than 800 suspects, but none could be proven as the man. One of the biggest clues left behind was his black clip-on tie. It contained microscopic evidence. Decades later, DNA analysis was performed, but results were incomplete. Then, in 1980, nearly 9 years after the hijacking, something shocking happened. A young boy digging along the banks of the Columbia River discovered bundles of cash, $5,800. Serial numbers matched the ransom money. The discovery shocked investigators and reignited hope that the mystery might finally be solved. But it only created more questions. If the money reached the river, did the hijacker survive? Did he drown? Did he lose the money while landing? Or did someone else find it? No one knew. Over decades, many suspects were proposed. One famous suspect was Richard Floyd McCoy. He committed a similar skyjacking months later, but investigators eventually ruled him out. Other suspects came and went: military veterans, pilots, criminal masterminds, ordinary citizens, but nothing ever led to proof. And this is where the mystery becomes deeper, because this was not just a crime, it was psychology, it was planning, it was understanding systems better than the systems understood themselves. The man knew aviation. He knew parachuting. He knew law enforcement response patterns. He knew how media would react. He knew fear works better than violence. He never fired a weapon. He never hurt anyone. He spoke politely. He behaved like a professional. And then, he vanished. But let's step back for a moment, because, stories like this are never just about one person. They are about society, they are about systems, they are about how small gaps in security can change history. In the early 1970s, air travel security was very different. No metal detectors, no baggage scanners, no identity verification like today. You could walk into an airport, buy a ticket with cash, and board a plane within minutes. The world was more trusting, and that trust created opportunity. After the hijacking, aviation changed forever. Airports introduced metal detectors, passenger screening became mandatory, cash ticket purchases became suspicious, security agencies started sharing information globally, and the Boeing 727 aircraft was modified. Airlines added something called the Cooper vane, a device preventing rear stairs from being lowered mid-flight. One man changed global aviation security, without ever revealing who he was. But the biggest question remains. Did he survive? Experts disagree. Some say jumping at night, in storm weather, over wilderness. Survival chances were very low. Others say he was prepared. Maybe military trained. Maybe experienced skydiver. Maybe he planned landing location carefully. If he survived, did he live quietly? Did he spend the money slowly? Did he watch news about himself? Imagine living with the biggest unsolved crime identity and never telling anyone. The story also reveals something about human nature. People are fascinated by mystery. People are fascinated by rebellion. People are fascinated by intelligence over power. For some, he is a criminal. For others, he is a legend. For others, he is proof that even the strongest systems have weaknesses. Over the years, amateur investigators joined the hunt. Podcasts were made, documentaries were filmed, books were written, online communities, analyzed weather maps, parachute models, flight data, geography, and even psychology profiles. Every generation tries to solve it again, and still, nothing. But maybe the real story isn't about identity. Maybe it's about control. How systems believe they control everything. How individuals sometimes outthink those systems. How planning can, honestly, defeat power. One calm man, one note, one briefcase, one jump into darkness, and, well, history changes forever. Imagine that night. Cold wind hitting your face, rain hitting your eyes, total darkness below you, no guarantee of survival, and still choosing to jump. That decision alone is, honestly, something most humans could never make. But mystery also creates myth. Over time, facts mix with imagination. Some believe he died instantly, some believe he escaped and lived peacefully, some believe multiple people were involved, some believe the money was planted later. But without proof, everything remains theory. In 2016, after 45 years of investigation, the FBI officially suspended active investigation, not because they solved it, but because leads had gone cold. Resources were needed elsewhere, but they never closed the case completely, because somewhere, maybe, the truth still exists. And that is what makes this story immortal, because, mysteries survive longer than facts. Facts end discussions. Mysteries, well, they create generations of questions. Even today, decades later, the name still appears in news articles, documentaries, and discussions. A man who boarded a plane, executed one of the boldest crimes ever, and disappeared into legend. No confession, no body, no final answer, only questions. And maybe, that is why the story continues. Because humans are always searching for truth, searching for patterns, searching for meaning. And sometimes, the biggest stories are not about what we know, they are about what we never will. Somewhere in history, somewhere in storm clouds, somewhere between fear and courage, a man jumped and became a legend. If this story teaches us anything, it is this. Systems can change overnight. Security can be rewritten, history can be altered by one decision, and mystery can outlive everyone involved. Was he a criminal mastermind? Was he desperate? Was he trained? Was he lucky? Maybe we will never know. But one thing is certain. On November 24th, 1971, the world changed, and somewhere in the darkness, a man disappeared, leaving behind one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in history. Thank you for staying through this documentary story. Stories like these remind us that history is not just about wars, kings, or governments. Sometimes it is about one unknown person who changed everything, and maybe, somewhere, the truth still waits to be discovered.